Does Modern Warfare 3's campaign uphold the level of polish and quality that the Modern Warfare franchise is known for? Or is this a concerning step in the wrong direction? These questions and more here on the 6th episode of the Mystery Box Podcast. Good morning, you beautiful people. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day today. The Modern Warfare 3 campaign has dropped for those of us who have pre-ordered Modern Warfare 3. This podcast is mostly going to be a spoiler talk because that's really the fun of talking about this stuff. But I will give you a quick brief here, spoiler-free little rundown of my thoughts real quick. Essentially, what you're hearing from, I would say, a majority of people is kind of how I feel. This is a pretty disappointing campaign, especially from Infinity Ward. Now, that being said, a lot of people are saying this is like the worst Call of Duty campaign ever, and I still think that goes to Black Ops 4. But honestly, the details of this campaign aren't necessarily as bad as some other campaigns. Personally, I wasn't a fan. I think Black Ops 3 might be my actual least favorite campaign. And then you have stuff like Advanced Warfare, Vanguard, even like Ghosts and World War II, in my opinion, didn't really have a lot going for them. So this, I would say, is better than those, but that might just be because it's the Modern Warfare universe. And I really like this new Modern Warfare universe. And the main reason I love this new Modern Warfare universe has to be because of the characters. These are, I think, I had this realization today, these might be my favorite Call of Duty characters in the Call of Duty franchise. I think I like them more than the original characters because we have a little bit more depth, and you know, the animations and the actors really just acted their butt off here. Like, they gave great performances here. I love the interactions between them. They feel human, and I do want to give a huge shout out. I don't know, this could just be me making up stuff, but Brian Bloom has been working at Infinity Ward for so long. You might know him as Captain Reyes in Infinite Warfare's campaign, but he does a lot of writing. He does a lot of script. I believe he was in the military of some capacity of some sorts, maybe, I don't know, but he does a lot of voice work. He did a voice work for a lot of the classic Infinity Ward campaigns, but he always has really grounded and cool and fun dialogue, in my opinion. And I don't know if that's him or just the team he works with or just the people at Infinity Ward, but whenever I'm like, oh man, the dialogue's really good, or the story's really good, or you know, I like the writing here, Brian Bloom always finds a way to kind of sneak in there. So I just want to give a huge shout out to him because I think that's probably a big reason why this is a huge success in terms of characters and dialogue and all that stuff. And there's other good stuff. The missions, I think, look visually beautiful. There's some really beautiful missions in here. Cutscenes are great. The music, I think, is pretty good. Kind of got me excited a couple times. I noticed the music here, which is definitely not something I usually do with the new Modern Warfare franchise. The game runs well. I think it played really smooth. I got some good frames. I didn't see a lot of bugs. There were little things here and there, of course, like there is all the time, but nothing huge, nothing devastating like some bugs I encountered in Modern Warfare 2019. So that's all good. But the main thing that's spoiler free about this review, I would say, is that this campaign just needed more time. It feels like it needs more meat on its bones. It feels like it needs more development time, more balancing, more depth, and reworking of some things. But other than that, that's my spoiler free review. I don't think it's worth this. If you're a campaign only person, I don't think it's worth the $70, honestly. If you're looking at the whole package, maybe you're definitely going to play some multiplayer. You might play some zombies a little bit, and this campaign, you know, when it's a couple months, you know, after Christmas or whatever, and it's like $40, maybe not even then, but around that price point, if it's on a discount, you can play it. It's a fun, like I said, I love these characters. If you love these characters, you're going to like these characters' interactions here. I think everybody had a certain moment within this campaign. I think they heard feedback from Modern Warfare 2's campaign that, oh my goodness, these people weren't really in it. This person wasn't really in it. I'd really like to see these people interact. And I feel like that got everybody interacting with one another here. And that was just fun to see. But that's it for the spoiler free. We are now entering spoiler territory because spoilers kind of happen early on, sort of a little bit here. And I want to talk about the good here at the start because it's going to take a lot less time, and we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the bad and what could have been better and all that stuff. But the good, as I've said, the characters are fantastic, and there were certain story beats, certain missions, certain things that I found that were good. Farah's intro cutscene, the second mission, when she's driving with her friend or whoever that is, and then she just gets shot randomly. I don't know why I didn't see that. That took me by surprise, but that was like a real emotional moment for her, and it kind of did a great job of showing like, oh oh man, the war's over, we don't want the war to come back, and then just this inciting incident, and it raised the stakes for Farah's character, and it made sense why she was so invested in this whole thing going on in Verdansk and with Makarov and all that stuff. I thought that was really neat. I liked the throwback mission to Verdansk in the stadium. I think that was one of the most interesting missions because you could almost see that as like a No Russian-esque type mission, because you go back into it's a flashback with Captain Price and Soap, and they're hunting down Makarov for the first time ever, I think, or for one of the earlier times. And they're going through the stadium, and there's a bunch of police that are undercover for Makarov, you know, shooting up the place, everything. It feels like it's the kind of opposite end of No Russian. It's like if you were to infiltrate the airport back in the No Russian mission in 2009 and kind of play it from that perspective. So I thought that was really interesting to see that kind of like terrorist attack going on from that perspective. But that does lead me to the No Russian mission. As weird as this sounds, this mission, I think, at least story-wise, I really enjoyed it because the original No Russian mission, I think at this point, is infamous for its provocativeness, but it's also infamous for its nonsensicalness, because when you really think and you really play Modern Warfare 2 from 2009, it kind of doesn't make sense what they're doing in terms of Makarov and the undercover American shooting up this airport. They find Makarov's face on the security cameras. He's clearly Russian. He's clearly Makarov, but they still think America did it. It's kind of weird. It's like that meme where it's just like Russia shoots up its own airport and goes, how could America do this? It didn't really make sense. And in fact, most of the Modern Warfare 2 2009 campaign didn't really make that much sense, but it's a Call of Duty campaign. But anyway, this one felt way more realistic. It felt realistic. It made way more sense logically. Now, of course, it's still a video game. You still got to do video game logic, but it was really cool how they singled out this Urzikstan soldier who fought with Farah and their, army against the Russians. They found her on a flight with Russians, and then they gave her a gun, and then they said, hey, we're going to take over this, and then these bad guys come out, and so she, being a soldier, wants to fight them, so and you, being the player, want to fight them too and stop what's going on, so you shoot them, but then the passengers don't really know what's going on, so they just see you shooting people, and then they bring you, they put a bomb on your chest, and they like throw the phone out, and then you have the passengers fight. I just thought it was a great natural way of playing it up. I know it's not like completely full logic proof because Makarov is still there in the phone stuff, all that stuff. Like, why didn't she just say what was going on? But just it felt a little bit more natural than the original No Russian. So I appreciated that, even though it was nothing really at all like what the No Russian little teaser image at the end of Modern Warfare 2022 really thought it was going to be. Moving on, something else that I realized when playing this, I love the characters, like I said, but I think my all-time new favorite Call of Duty character is Philip Graves. He's just so snarky and so like he's perfect in this. I love the actor, how he plays him, just that little knowing laugh and smile. And they do call it, like, the first thing you think of is like when he was working with Farah and Alex in Modern Warfare 2's like raids and whatever. You're like, bro, how are they working together? Why are they working together? That's something that they approach fairly well in this game. I think you're going to be split on it. I think people might be split on it. They might think, oh man, that's reasonable. I like how that ended up. Or no, I don't really believe that. They should have done this or that. But like Farah and Price have an interaction talking about what happened, and then everyone's meeting back up in this warehouse, and then Shepard is calling somebody, and then they all like chip in and poking at Shepard, and then Graves comes in, and the interaction with Graves and Soap and Ghost and that little back and forth there just brought a smile to my face. And it brought a smile to Philip Graves' face too. You could see right there, he's smiling because he's such a jerk. It's a great character. He's a great character. I love him. I love his demeanor. It's perfect. Continuing on with the positives, I think Makarov worked well enough. I wasn't really blown away. Again, the actor did a great job. He was threatening. He was very serious. He felt like a threat, which was really good. Still a little bit too cartoony for me. He felt a little bit like a mustache twirling villain at times, but he wasn't that bad whatsoever. And like I said, the missions themselves, there are some vibrant greens. There's some amazing sunrises and some sunsets, and the rainy, spooky stuff at the first mission is super great. Like visually and performance-wise, it played really well. So I appreciate that. And of course, the gunplay is Call of Duty. It's entertaining. It's fun. It's that classic Call of Duty thing that we've been playing for 20 years now. So there's all of the good that I have for you. Not all of the good. There's other good stuff, but just the big things here. But now let's move on to the bad, the things that could be worked on. So I just want to try to explain this here. We're going to talk about the elephant in the room, open combat missions. There are 14 total missions in Modern Warfare 3, Modern Warfare 2023 here. 8 of them are normal, regular missions. 6 of them are open combat missions. However, there are 2 of the normal missions that are very limited in the gameplay. The No Russian mission, as well as Laswell's Deep Cover mission, is basically just like a walking kind of cinematic experience. It's like a long cutscene. It's just like a story mission rather than an actual gameplay mission. And then one other mission is an AC-130 mission. So you have 2 cinematic missions, an AC-130 mission from 8 regular missions. That brings you down to 5 normal missions. And one of those missions is Payload with Captain Price. And that really feels, that's supposed to be, I think, like the stealth mission, because you're given like a drone to like scout out where your route's going to be. That plays sort of like an open combat mission, to be honest. So the normal Call of Duty experience that we love from that crafted single player campaign experience, not exactly here. I guess it is fair to say there's a mission called High Rise, which is an open combat mission that plays pretty similarly to a normal mission, just a little bit bigger or more expansive, I guess. But I don't hate the open combat missions. You know, I know this is in the negatives here, but I don't hate the open combat missions. They were functional, they were fine. My only problem was that there weren't enough of those regular Call of Duty campaign structured missions. The ones that were in there were serviceable, we're good, we're solid, albeit a little short, but I don't think that was the right pacing. I think you're going to hear a lot of people say, oh my goodness, this is such a short campaign. And yes, it is short, but I think a lot of that feedback comes from the fact that those normal missions are, 1, very short, but also 2, very scattered. The first mission is a normal mission, but then the next 2 missions are open combat missions, and then it's that stealth open world-esque mission, so it really doesn't feel like Call of Duty for a long, like 30 to 45 minutes after that first mission. But it is all dependent on how you receive the open combat missions. Like I said, I didn't hate them, and playing them over and over again, I feel like they do have a little bit more there than I had at first thought, but they do also feel pretty primitive. And that starts the conversation of like the philosophy behind the open combat missions. Let's pretend that there's no shady stuff going on. Let's pretend they really believed that they really loved these open combat missions, and they are in no way put in there because of lack of time and they just had to come up with some campaign missions. No, let's just forget that moment. You know, let's just take that out of our minds. What's the philosophical goal of an open combat mission? What do we want players to experience within an open combat mission? They have said that we get to play how we want. You get to choose your playstyle. You can go in stealth, you can go in loud, and I guess that's it. And that's kind of interesting. And I heard that and I was going into it and I kind of started out stealthy. I kind of tried, you know, moving around slowly, taking out people when I could, but it always at some point in time led to me getting found out and just going loud and killing everybody like a regular mission. I should say I played on the regular difficulty and then I replayed them on the recruit difficulty. I don't know how they'll play on the harder difficulties. I feel like stealth might be more, you might rely on stealth more on the harder difficulties. I'm not sure. I need some more experience for that. But I played them on recruit and regular for my first couple playthroughs. And to me, it felt like I could just bum rush the objective, kill everything in my way, and there really was no punishment. And I think that's the big issue I have with that sort of style of open worldness. There needs to be a decision to hold players accountable to a certain play style within other Call of Duty campaign missions. Like you can't, like for example, you can't play like Clean House from Modern Warfare 20. You can't just storm in and shoot everybody and like go from room to room, slide jumping all around. You can't do that. You have to, like, the game forces you to play in this specific way. And if you don't, you get killed or you get a failure state of some sort. But with these open combat missions, sure, you could go all stealth, but why would you? Like you could go, you know, guns blazing, but why would you? What makes that different? What are the incentives to play it this way versus to play it that way? And this might be kind of a bigger issue altogether. I've thought about this for a long time, as pathetic as that sounds, but Call of Duty, in terms of the campaign, has a pretty limited sandbox. And I know you're thinking, Donuts, that's crazy because you got kill streaks, you got like 40 different weapons, you've got all these perks and equipment, all this stuff. And you're right, but ultimately you're facing guys that die in like 2 bullets, and even armored people die in like 5 bullets. There's not a lot of mechanical depth. Whereas if you take something like Halo, yes, you have fewer weapons, but those weapons serve different roles and substantially different roles. And then you have a large variety of enemies that react to those weapons in different ways. And then you have ships and vehicles, and all of these things play off each other, and the weapons interact with the ships different, and the ships interact with the players different. And in Call of Duty, whether it's an SMG or an assault rifle or a battle rifle or a tactical rifle, they're going to kill the one default soldier the same way. Like the biggest difference I could see is like sniping versus shotgunning versus like SMG AR. Like the classes are different, but then you get like stuns versus flashes versus, you know, smoke or whatever. Like there's some variance, but there's not a whole lot of reason to use it. There's not a whole lot of situations where you're like, oh man, I need a smoke right now, unless the game specifically crafts a situation where you need to use a smoke or where you need to use a sniper rifle. And I believe that is when Call of Duty is at its most successful. Maybe not at its best, but it's at its most successful when it's not the enemies, it's not the weapons, it's not the equipment, it's not the big kill streaks. It's the situation that it puts you in to use those things. And I would argue, going back to Modern Warfare 2 2022's campaign, they did a really good job at making all of those situations in that campaign really flow really well with the sandbox of Call of Duty. You had a all gillied up mission where you were sniping and you could use that sort of strategy to snipe people. And of course you could use assault rifles if you really wanted to, but then you had your vehicle mission, which for as much as people hate it, I replayed it recently and it's really not too bad. And then you had your clean house missions, and then you had your big bombastic, we're just shooting everybody with an army missions, and the game crafted those events in a very specific and satisfying way. And it even had situations where you could throw a smoke and see visual lasers that you needed to dodge around. So that, in my opinion, is way more engaging than just an open world where it's just like you can use everything if you want to or not. Because if it's me, I'm just going right to the end and going, yeah, I'm not wasting my time with all this other stuff. If I can beat it in this time, in this way, why would I do it any other way? And that might be a really shallow and unfun way of doing it, but that's just kind of, I know it's weird to like buy a game and go, I don't want to do what you tell me, I'm going to do what I want to do, but that's kind of how my brain works, I guess. But I still do think that's a valid question. Why would you take your time and stealth your way through this? Like there might be some, I think there's actually an achievement or so to like not alert certain people in certain situations, but in terms of gameplay, like you're not going to get through it faster. You're not going to find, I mean, there are Easter eggs, which, you know, Easter egg guns and Easter egg things to find is always very good. But there's not a whole lot of gameplay benefit of doing one or the other, which is exactly what they set out to do. Because if they let you play in your own way, it means they can't punish you for playing any other way. And that's kind of a weird flip side to think about it. They cannot punish you for playing any way. If you want to play dumb and bombastic and just, that, fine, play your way. If you want to be slow and monotonous and tedious, and great, cool, we're not going to punish you for that. So it's a weird balance. It's a weird set of circumstances that you're within a Call of Duty game. And it does, the criticism that it feels like DMZ, it feels more like Spec Ops to me. It feels like Spec Ops where it's just like this big open world, like not the classic Spec Ops, like the new Spec Ops, like the 2019 and 2022 Spec Ops, where it's part of the Verdansk map or the Al-Mazrah map or whatever, and it's like, go do this thing, and then you go do that thing, and like, great, go do this thing, and you go do that thing, and that's basically it. And I guess that's the other thing too. These missions I thought were going to be a lot more intricate and a lot more detailed, and ooh, there's a lot of different mechanics. Like you got to do this objective, and this objective. Pick what order, and if you do this one first, then that helps you here. But if you do this one here, it helps you here. That's not how it works. It's literally not how it works. It's just like, go to this location, do this thing. Go to this location, do this thing. Cool. Now this new objective happens, and you need to go to this. It's like a linear mission. It's still a linear mission, which is kind of, I think, the biggest like disappointment I guess I had of the mode, because I really thought it would be, you can complete these things in any order. And I guess technically you can, but there's like stages to it. Like it's not as detailed or depth. I wish I could say this better. In one mission, you need to defuse bombs first. So you defuse all the bombs. You can defuse the bombs in any order you like, but you're still just defusing bombs. It doesn't matter the order that you do it in. It's not like defusing a bomb here will affect how easy or difficult defusing a bomb here will be, which is really what I wanted, or I think would be the best version of the open combat mission, is that if you do something over here, this gives you a perk or a weapon or a kill streak that makes this easier. There are kill streaks on the map, and in the second open combat mission, you do get kill streaks from loot chests, but I think that'd be cool to like have a mission or submission or an objective that gives you a kill streak that helps you do this other mission. But if you wanted to, you could do this mission. You know what I mean? I think you guys get what I'm saying. It's open, but without point. They also give you like a create a class during these missions sometimes, but you can't access the gunsmith, and you're just stuck with the weapons that you find from the loot chests anyway. So this is one of those things where it's like that Call of Duty sandbox where it's like, who cares if I have this SMG or this SMG? Like, yeah, you'll have your preference, and of course you can use your preference weapon and whatnot, but there's really not a lot. Like, I wish I could build a class for this thing and really cater to exactly how I want to play the mission, like a DMZ or a Spec Ops, but that doesn't happen. It's just like, hey, which one of these weapons guns that you found pre-made already would you like to use? And it's like, I'm going to run out of ammo. I'd just rather pick up a gun on the ground anyway. And because these missions are really fast, they're done super quick, especially on subsequent playthroughs. Like I could get these done really quickly, like under 10 minutes, I would imagine, because it's so fast. I took my time in like the first one. I replayed the first one, and like I was exploring, I was looking for all the weapons that I didn't have yet, and the constant of Graves in my ear going, hey, we need to mark that target. Hey, we need to mark that target. These people moving in, you need to mark that target. It's like pressuring the player to continue the mission when I'm trying to explore. I'm trying to take my time and actually do what you advertised in doing. It's just, it feels clunky. It doesn't feel bad. It just feels like they needed to add more depth. They needed to add more gameplay and more dynamics within this whole open world area. It's not horrible. It doesn't feel horrible. It doesn't feel like, oh my goodness, what is this doing in here? I mean, it kind of does a little bit, but it's not like this negative thing. It's just kind of like a neutral meh, which for some people might be worse. And the last thing I'll say about these open combat missions is it was so jarring to me. And I didn't notice this until like the end of the playthrough. You go in solo every single time you go into these open combat missions. In fact, the second open combat mission, the cutscene introduces you. It's your Captain Price. You're jumping into this pop-off whatever, base, whatever. Ghost jumps out of the plane first, and you could see him jump out, and then your Price, you jump out next. And when I first played it, I was like looking in the sky, I was being all dumb, I was like, where did Ghost go? I was like looking at my tac map, I was like, is he marked somewhere? Like, where'd he go? Where's Soap? Where did Gaz go? You're solo. Like, he's just off somewhere doing something else. And that's every single open combat mission too, and some other regular missions too. They're just like, all right, yeah, I see you, I'm sniping over here. Farah on one of these missions is like, yep, I'm over here, I'm watching you. And it's like, why aren't you here, like with me? Like, why aren't we doing this together? And I think that's because in an open combat mission, having that AI follow you around when you're trying to be stealthy or when you're trying to go this way, but they want to go this way, I don't know if they had the time to script that or figure that out. That seems like a really complicated problem. But as we said, when 6 of your 14 missions are these open combat missions, when you're solo, it's kind of draining to me. I like those missions where you're playing as a team, you're in the middle of a war and you've got your squad here, you've got your teammates over here, and they're fighting all these enemies over here. I like that. And open combat missions would be so sick for that, having this constant, it'd be like Modern Warfare 2, like 2009 Modern Warfare 2's the enemy of my enemy is my friend, having Connie versus the military versus the, what do you call them? Marines, and them infighting, and then you kind of completing objectives in and out of them. That would be so cool to see, but unfortunately that's not the direction they took these missions. In fact, let's count this real quick here. There are only 3 missions with a large portion dedicated to more than just you playing. The first mission has you and Connie breaking out Makarov. The Tundra Snow mission has you and 141 and Shepard fighting Connie and all that stuff, but that's kind of a bigger group of people, which is really cool. And then the last mission when you're in the subway, you're with 141 and the police and all that stuff. Those are the only 3 missions where you have like an ensemble cast and you're fighting with everybody. Everything else is either an open combat mission where you're by yourself, or it's like one of those, the plain ones, or it's the Laswell one where you're by yourself, and then there's the Captain Price one where Farah meets up with you later. Wow, that's crazy. I didn't realize that till just now. I thought the best weapon was team. Infinity Ward, what happened to the best weapon is team? And oh my goodness, where's Alejandro? I completely forgot about him until just now. Where's Alejandro and Rudy? They're dealing with Mexico stuff. That's okay. I feel like that makes sense. This is like Russia and Urzikstan. That was Mexico and Urzikstan, I think. Iran. Now the normal missions luckily are, in my opinion, a step up from the open combat missions. I do find it a little hinky there that they have 8 normal missions, simply because it's just technically more than half. And some of these missions, like the No Russian mission, the plane mission, and Laswell's mission with the gas in the Orlov base, really short, could have been a cutscene or could have been not counted as a mission in and of itself, but really short. So I just find it a little weird that they might be just like proactively saying, hey, most of these missions aren't open combat missions. Just, I don't know. And even though they were better, like I kind of alluded to just there, I wish they were better. They felt really shallow and they felt really, really short. And I know Call of Duty campaigns are usually short. You know, I saw the feedback and I'm like, well, Call of Duty campaigns are really short. I spent a lot longer than I thought I did on the campaign. I spent 4 hours on the campaign on my first playthrough. That was really short. That's including deaths and including different wanderings around that I was doing. If you were to speedrun this, you could probably get like 2-hour time, honestly. And to give you an example, the very last mission had one of those missions where you had to like walk around and interact with people. It was kind of like the Amsterdam mission in Modern Warfare 2 2022, but this whole section, you're like following this person around for like literally 30 seconds. You pet Riley from Call of Duty Ghosts, which is pretty cool, but it ends in like 30 seconds. And then immediately after that, you have this like security camera footage mission where you're looking for this guy that lasts like 30 seconds. Later in the mission, there's like a bomb defusal thing, which is the first time you've ever seen it, and it's in the last mission, but that lasts like 30 seconds. That doesn't last very long. In the first mission, Makarov asks you a question and you get a dialogue choice, which is really cool. I thought, oh man, cool, dialogue is going to be in it. Kind of like in 2022, where you could interact with Ghost and Laswell and Price and all that stuff, and you can get more character dialogue. Nope, that's the only time it's ever in the game. That is you get one question from Makarov, and that's it. In Deep Cover, in the Laswell mission, you have to find a key card from a captain or somebody, and you're playing stealth, but it's not like Vanguard where you're in the Kremlin and you're going through all of these things and hacking these computers. Nope, you just follow a guy to his office, kill him, and then you have the key card, and that's like the end of the mission. Then you get a cutscene, and that's it, and then you like escape. It's so short, it's so shallow, it's so weird. It feels everything was cut short here. Like they did a little bit. Okay, that's good enough. Let's move it over here. Do this a little bit. Okay, that's there. Check that box off. Okay, it's just, it felt so like, oh man, this is why I don't think it's so bad. I don't think like this is the worst campaign ever, because these are great ideas and I like these things. I like the security camera thing. I think this is a great idea. I like the bomb defusal thing. That was really fun. It was like the bomb defusal game, that was that VR game that came out however long ago. That was neat. That was a cool idea. But then it was like, they did it for like 10 seconds and then they moved on. And I was like, oh man, like that's why I think this campaign just needed more time. It just needed more things to be fleshed out and to really get that depth and that replayability and that like purpose, because in Modern Warfare 2 2022, I hated Alone. I hated that mission where you had to find these different things and make these different like Molotovs and explosives and all that stuff, but it felt like a truly fleshed out mechanic, and it came back in another mission and it felt like, yep, this is part of what makes this game this game. These feel like gimmicks, but I know I've seen them used in previous Modern Warfare titles. I know they're not gimmicks, but they're using them like they're gimmicks here. I know this is pretty negative. I know that it's not bad. It's not a bad thing. Like I said, it's just, I wish there was more. And maybe on a positive note here, this is kind of a random, I didn't know quite where to put this, but I felt like there were little tiny motifs of the original Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3 here. Like some set pieces, obviously the Gulag is a motif of the original Gulag, but that's a whole other thing. But there's like that snow mission felt very much like the Modern Warfare 2 2009 snow mission. And there were other things that I won't go into detail because it's kind of boring, but they might not have even been intentional, but just the angles and the situation of these characters. Maybe I'm just trying to see things that aren't actually there, but it felt like there was little tiny subtle motifs that you might have missed about the original trilogy that kind of remerged here, which I personally enjoyed a little bit, but you know, but there was also a weird, and this could be me just overthinking it because I know I was going to do this podcast and I was really trying to observe everything I could about this campaign, and I might be treating this more harshly and more unfairly than I have other campaigns. I don't know, I'll have to play other campaigns, but I feel like there was some weird gameplay balancing issues, which I don't find happens too often, especially in Infinity Ward campaigns. And what I mean by this, there's a couple of moments where I was like, this doesn't really make sense from a gameplay perspective. And let me, in the second open combat mission, it's called Reactor. You're playing as Captain Price, and at the end of it, there's like a mini little mission, singular mission here, where you have to take out a couple of people in this silo or whatever, and gas is rising, and Captain Price is screaming at you, I have no cover here, I need to move, the gas is rising, I need to get to higher ground, I need to move, and he says it so passionately and so frequently that my gamer brain is like, I'm clearly doing something wrong. My character is yelling at me, get out of here, I need to get higher ground. But the problem was, and there was higher ground in my visual space. I saw enemies, I was shooting enemies at the higher ground, and I know this is like a Warzone map, so I'm like, hey, or a ground war map, so I'm like, hey, maybe there's like a zip line, maybe there's a ladder, I'm kind of like looking around, maybe I have to go to the other side and get up there, and it caused me to move and die more than once, and I was like, why is that? So I like try to hold out, and the answer, even though Price is yelling at you, I need to move. I need cover. I need to get to high ground. The solution, the way you win the level is just by staying. It's just by doing nothing. It's just by staying there, and then like Laswell and whoever throws a rope to you that you can use to ascend out of there. So I felt like that was just a weird, and maybe I'm just an idiot. Maybe I'm just dumb. These things could be. I think I'm notoriously a bad video game player on my first playthroughs. I think I'm notoriously a slow learner, and I don't observe things very well sometimes in video games. But I was really trying, and I was like, and I took that, and I was like, okay, I got to get to higher ground. Let's see. Nope, I'm just supposed to stay there and do nothing. This one really isn't a gameplay thing, just kind of a logical thing. In Payload, where you're playing as Captain Price, you have to find this key card from one of this commander with a beret on, and it's one of like 30 or 50 people that you have to kill. And then the first part of the mission is all about you finding this key card and sneaking into this bunker. Once you're in the bunker, you get trapped by the people. They lock you out, and then all of a sudden Farah just appears from the vents and just kills them. To which I said, why didn't we just go together there? Why didn't we just both go there? Like, maybe I missed it. Maybe there was a dialogue thing, but I was just like, why is that a thing? But anyway, also in Payload, the very last thing you need to do is flip a switch to close the silo doors. And I got there. I got to the point where I'm like, hey, here's the button. And I tried to flip it, and it said there's enemies nearby, and you can't push the button when enemies are nearby. Since when? This is not sleeping in Minecraft. This is a button to close a door. Why can't I flip that switch when there's enemies nearby? So I went over, and you're timed for this too. You're on a timed thing. So of course I'm rushing. I'm skipping enemies because, oh my goodness, I gotta close these doors. I thought that was what the game wanted me to do. So I like killed as many as I could, snuck around the Juggernaut, boom, hit the switch, and nope, I needed to kill the Juggernaut first. So okay, that's just kind of a weird thing for me. And this one, I'm pretty sure, is just because I'm dumb. So I'm gonna be vulnerable with you beautiful people. I'm dumb. On High Rise, which I think is my favorite open combat mission. I think because it probably plays most like a linear mission, there's at the very start of the mission, there's a rope and an elevator shaft. That's very important, right? Because in my Verdansk, in my Warzone experience, elevator shaft with a rope, I don't want to jump into it. I just want to find something, the ascender that will make me go up the rope, because you walk up to the elevator shaft, you look through the doors, and it says you need an ascender. So I'm like, great, I need an ascender. And I look at the dead body, I'm like, he doesn't have it, and I just scour this like 10 foot by 10 foot area. It's like 2 hallways, and I'm scouring. I'm like, there's nothing here. Like, there's nothing here. How in the world do I get up this thing with an ascender when there's no ascender nearby? And turns out, behind the rope, you have to jump into the elevator shaft, and behind the rope, there's a ladder that you go up. Like I said, I'm pretty sure that's my fault for being dumb, but in my defense, the rope is covering the ladder. There's not like, I don't think there's a light shining on the ladder or anything that would subtly tell you to go up the ladder, but like the rope, and then it's like, you need an ascender. The first thing I'm going to think of is, oh, I need to find an ascender. It's an open combat mission. I need to find these tools and things, but there's nothing. And now thinking about it now, the fact that there is nothing on that first level probably is a sign that you don't really need an ascender. The reason the rope is there is for an achievement that you get later on when you revisit the mission, open combat mission, because you can revisit them, and you can revisit it with an ascender, and then you can use it to get the achievement. So it is what it is. It could just be me being dumb, but I just felt like those were just little subtle gameplay tweaks that kind of tripped me up a little bit. And in terms of gameplay, that's basically it. It's not horrible. It's really not horrible, but it's really sad because I thought Modern Warfare 2019, Modern Warfare 2 2022 had really phenomenal gameplay. I loved the gameplay of both of those games. I played Modern Warfare 2 2022 on realism immediately after I beat that game. It was so satisfying. It was so fun for me. And the worst thing about Modern Warfare 2 2022 is just the plot made no sense. But unfortunately, I think one of the weakest things about Modern Warfare 3 is the gameplay. I think it's just so shallow. I think it's so not underdeveloped, but underdeveloped. I think it's really lacking skin on the bones. It's lacking meat on the bones. It's really just skin and bones. It's got a great structure. It's got a great framework to grow, but it just feels like it needed more time, maybe another year or two. I mean, maybe that's why we release Call of Duties in the certain time span that we do. But everything else, let's forget the gameplay. The gameplay's done. Let's talk about the story and the plot, because it's a little bit more fun. First thing I noticed, Alex is here, and there's absolutely no explanation whatsoever. Now, I know I'm very well aware that he popped up in Warzone in 2019 with the leg and everything, and they kind of explained it or hand waved it, whatever. But for the people who play the campaign and don't play the raids from Modern Warfare 2, who don't play Warzone or follow the Warzone cutscenes when they come about, if you played Modern Warfare 2019, you would see Alex die, and then in Modern Warfare 2, you would be, yeah, he's gone. There's no mention of him. I don't think there's a mention of him in 2022, except for the raids, obviously. But then you play the Modern Warfare 3 campaign, and he's just back. Like, there's no explanation. There's no nothing. And I get it. Like, it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. It's kind of that whole almost Marvel Disney-esque type problem that we're having nowadays, where it's like, you have to watch all of these different, like, subtle, small things in order to be up to date about these big movies coming out and these big games coming out, which I'm personally not a fan of. I don't think everything needs to be canon. And I was really excited in 2019 when we rebooted Modern Warfare 2019, because it was really clean. It was really clear. We got new young actors. We had great storytelling. We had great dialogue. And we set up, Zakhaev. Was Zakhaev, right? Yeah, Imran Zakhaev. We set up Khalid al-Assad. I was like, oh my goodness, Modern Warfare 2 is going to be like COD 4, and we're going to go through all of it again. And then all of the Verdansk stuff happened. All of that stuff happened on Warzone. And I was like, oh, well, we just kind of missed all of that. Like, that was so hype for Modern Warfare 2. And then Modern Warfare 2 came out. And then all of a sudden we have Soap and Ghost here out of nowhere. And they have a history in Warzone. And so that is kind of weird. They're kind of just shoehorned in here. And then Shepard and Modern Warfare 2 story was kind of weird. But now we have Makarov, and Makarov here is kind of rushed a little bit. He's not too bad, but I just feel like not everything in multiplayer in Warzone needs to be canon. Like, it's cool if it's a side little thing or a training simulator in Treyarch's games or whatever, but I just feel like sometimes when everything's canon, it takes away the stakes. It takes away the preciousness and the sanctity, I guess you could say, of these campaign missions. Because, and this is something that I think a lot of people are fighting over right now, I think technically speaking, Zombies is canon to the campaign, which I know a lot of people are going to ruffle up feathers here, but I think everybody's fine with the campaign being canon to Zombies, because that's how it's always worked, I guess. But Zombies being canon in the campaign just makes everything kind of seem pointless. Like, why are we worried about Makarov with this gas when Zakhaev has a gas that turns people into zombies and opens portals to different dimensions with different monstrous creatures? Like, that's way more of a threat than just plain old gas. All of that to say, I feel like the grounded, realistic storytelling that started in 2019 has kind of gotten off the rails here. I feel like this does a better job at, keeping it on the rails than 2022 did. I do think it's better than 2022 in terms of plot and kind of logic, I guess. But you still feel those effects of like, man, why is Alex here? Man, what happened to Alejandro and all these guys? And why is this happening? Well, who is this person? Why are we not worried about what we've seen previously in these campaigns? But at the end of this campaign, you're going to hear this a lot. This campaign ended like that. That was a bad snap. Like that, it ended so abruptly, because thinking about the literal events of what happened in this game make no sense to me. I mean, they make sense in terms of like, hey, that feels realistic. That would happen. But in terms of telling a story, what's resolved here? Nothing gets resolved here. Like, Makarov breaks out. Hijinks ensue. They continuously try to stop Makarov, and they do stop Makarov here, sometimes here, then they get ahead of him, then they stop him here, and then they let him get away. They don't let him get away, but he gets away, and then that's it. Like there's nothing, like the state of the world is no different. There's no resolution between the end of the first mission and the end of the last mission. All that's different is that Makarov is out and hijinks. There's a lot of great dialogue and a lot of great logic behind what Makarov is doing. He's doing a good job at framing Farah and her people on these terrorist attacks towards Russia. And that's the throwback mission from the Verdansk Stadium. That's the No Russian mission here. They're doing a great job at trying to make it seem like Farah and her people are being these terrorists, are committing these acts. But we never see any repercussions of this whatsoever. There is no like other nation getting involved going, hey, we got to stop these guys. Hey, we got to get these guys in Urzikstan. We got to go in there and teach them and take control of this. There's nothing like that. So while it makes sense logically, we never see or feel like these things have any repercussions whatsoever. We just go, that would be bad. Yeah, that is bad. All right, well, let's go on to the next mission. And that's kind of how a lot of things feel about this game. The Shepard / Graves thing, I personally like how it gets resolved, but you also kind of don't see the full resolution that you really want to. And I'll spoil it for you here now. Basically, Shepard and Graves are like, hey, the past is the past, whatever. We're working on this now, the enemy and my enemy, all that stuff. Price isn't happy, but Laswell makes a deal with Shepard to bring them back, to make them reinstated as the general and, clear their name and whatever, if they give them this intel and whatever. And in court, this is my favorite part. This is one of my favorite things, is that in court, Shepard says, nope, I didn't give this order for Graves to go after Task Force 141. And then Graves is like, yes, he did give the order, but I didn't go through with it. Of course I didn't go through with it. It is just so great. I just stupid dumb smile on my face. But that's where it ends. It ends right there. And you think, okay, well, Graves just lied to this committee and he spun Shepard in a bad light. That's going to have repercussions. No, Shepard's just back as a general now, just kind of his normal life again. And it's kind of like, okay, that was fun. It was cool to see, but it didn't really lead anywhere. Speaking of things that don't go anywhere, Yuri's in this game. Remember Modern Warfare 3, that Russian guy that you played as for the campaign? He's here for like 5 minutes and then he's gone. And Nikolai, which by the way, it's great to see Nikolai back here. He almost tongue-in-cheekly goes, well, I hope he made it. I hope he's okay. And again, this could be me just really nitpicking here, but I feel like there wasn't a lot of resolution or a lot of talking about what happened here, because there are terrorist attacks. Like I said, the stadium attack happens, the plane crash happens, and then we have a mission covering up the plane crash. And that's the last we ever hear of those missions. That's the last thing we hear about them. So I guess it all worked out. And then one of, in my opinion, my favorite missions was the Tundra Snow mission here. And it's great. It had good gameplay and it was really fun to do all this stuff. Except randomly, Shepard is just captured by Makarov. Not like in the moment, not like, oh man, we're going to help Shepard do this thing. And oh my goodness, he's captured like Laswell was back in 2022. No, he's just like, they have a prisoner. They're doing something with him. Cool. Let's capture him. Look, it's Shepard. Why is he here? Why and how did Makarov capture him? Never explained. It's never explained. It's never talked about. I was excited because I thought, oh my goodness, this is like Shepard doing Shepard things and the enemy of my enemy. We're going to get some cool like Graves turning on us again and actually having like a real Modern Warfare 2 moment. I thought at the end, Shepard and Graves or Graves was going to come in and like take out some of Task Force 141 and we were going to have that awesome moment. No, they just save him and they take him back, and that's when you have your congressional hearing about Shepard and Graves and all that stuff. And that's all. Why was he with Makarov? How did he get captured? We don't know. I have no idea. And then we captured Makarov's right-hand man. Now this might have been me not paying attention. I was kind of hungry during this mission, but we captured Makarov's right-hand man. And then I think we got some intel from him, and then that's it. Like that's all. Like he never shows up again. Whereas we captured like Valeria, Elsie Nombre in 2022, and we like kept coming back to her, interrogating her. That was our informant and all that stuff. And again, we captured this person and that's the end of it. Which transitions us into weird things that kind of made me feel a certain way. This is heavily spoiler territory. So up until now, I've not talked about anything super huge, super big, but now we're going to talk about the spoiler deaths here. There are two main character deaths, the first of which being, unfortunately, Soap McTavish. That poor guy cannot survive a Modern Warfare 3 title to save his life. Yes, I've been saving that joke. This was one of the dumbest shoehorned in deaths I've seen in Call of Duty in a while, and especially because I love this Soap. I think this Soap is really cool. He's younger. He's got that like vigor in him that I want to do this. I want to do the right thing. We're going to do this. Oh my goodness. Like it's great. He's a great character, but the way he dies is just so random, and it feels like Sledgehammer or Infinity Ward, whoever worked on this, like jumping through the screen and going, somebody's got to die now. Boom. Let's kill Soap. See ya, and then popping out a screen, because that's literally how Makarov does it. You're defusing this bomb. You have an army. You have all of the police force. You have your task force, whatever, and you're shooting these guys coming in, and then Soap needs your help, and you're going to look at the logo on this thing. You're going to cut this wire. You're going to do this thing, and, police are slowly dying. You hear over the comms, oh my goodness, like, Makarov is here. He's coming. Oh, he's doing this. And then you come out of here. He shoots Soap. He shoots Captain Price, but then he gets up, Soap gets up and, like, tries to stab Makarov, and then Makarov does some, like, moves on him and, like, shoots him in the face. I'm glad it was like clearly, obviously he's dead because, bullet hole in the face and all that stuff. It was very clear death. But then you get control as Price again, and Makarov is like, well, before that, You think, oh, why isn't he going to kill Price too? Well, that's when Ghost and Gaz come in and start shooting at Makarov, and then Makarov like comically like runs away. In that video game, you run away like, oh no, I gotta get out of here, and then you regain control of Price, and you could clearly shoot him. Like, this is so annoying to me. This happened with his right hand man too. You could clearly shoot Makarov with your gun, and you just, that doesn't mean anything. You just see him run away and you're like, oh, okay, I guess why did I have control if I couldn't shoot him in the first place? Like, you literally could have just not had the player have control until Makarov was gone and nothing would have changed. But the thing is, I feel like Ghost was way closer to Soap than Price was. I feel like Price, because of Modern Warfare 2019, was so close to Gaz. And I'm not saying that like Gaz needed to die or we need to, I just maybe wish we could have seen it from Ghost's perspective, because Soap was like Ghost's trainee, kind of like he was teaching Soap how to be a better soldier and all that stuff. And we do get some really good emotion from the voice actors and all that stuff about Soap, and it's really, they play it up really well. But I just can't help but feel like, why? Like, why did he have to die? Like, narratively, why did he have to die? And the thing that I think makes me feel this way the most is that Soap dies, we defuse the bomb, we go to the cutscene, they say goodbye to, like, rest in peace, Soap, and the game ends. Nothing happens from Soap dying. Like, nothing happens after that. Nothing, like, there's no vengeance. There's no, like, oh my goodness, we got to finish the fight. There's no, oh my goodness, we got to revenge kill. In Modern Warfare 3, the original Modern Warfare 3, when Soap died, Captain Price lost it. It was like an emotional thing. This was his guy for 2 games. He's been teaching how to do this thing. He's been buddies with. He's been doing this where they like escaped. They were on the run together, and it was an emotional moment. This is like an emotional moment just to be an emotional moment. In the original Modern Warfare 3, you see Price become really agitated and angry with Yuri. Like, how do you know Makarov? How does Makarov know you? And he gets so much bolder and so much stronger, more fierce going forward. And then that end, it makes it personal between him and Makarov, which it still does here. It still does here. But I think without that resolution, without that finale, the way the game just ended, it makes that death less impactful because we don't see the outcome of it. We don't see what happens because of that death. And strangely, when Price is this serious, Price does get serious because after the cutscene, after the game ends, there's a post-credit scene of Price in Shepard's office, and he just kills Shepard in his office. And then the game ends. For real. Which, like, yeah, I mean, I guess because Shepard was the big bad guy, but like, we had all this energy against Makarov, and we were like, oh man, Makarov just killed Soap, oh my goodness. And then Price is like, oh, I killed Shepard. And it feels like misguided. It feels like, well, he had nothing to do with Soap's death. At least I thought. I'll have to play it again and listen to the things. Maybe like Shepard knew, like Shepard told Makarov where, but I don't think that happened. I don't think he was working with Makarov. So like, why did Price kill Shepard there? Why did Price kill Shepard then? Like, couldn't he have waited another time? Like, it just kind of didn't make any sense. It doesn't hold much weight to me, even though it makes sense because Shepard gave the order to try to have Graves kill Soap and Ghost. It makes sense. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense. I'm just saying that it didn't feel like the right time. It didn't feel like the right next thing to do. It felt like they did it just because maybe the guy's contract was up. I don't know. Or maybe like they have different plans for different bad guys and they couldn't like pay him or they couldn't do whatever. But like, what fallout does that happen now? Because now this feels like the beginning of the third act of Modern Warfare 3 or Modern Warfare 2. This feels like, oh my goodness, now Price is going to have to be on the run from the CIA. Task Force 141's got to be on the run. And it feels almost like the original Modern Warfare 3 where they're their own independent thing and they've got to work in here. But now the game just ends. So there might be that excess like adrenaline and like pumped upness of like players of like, okay, cool, that's going to change the stakes. That's going to change the world. And then like the game ends and you're like, oh, well, that was a weird place to end that. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad Shepard's dead. I'm glad, like, it was a really cool scene. It was a really fun scene between the characters and all that stuff. Great dialogue, like I said, great dialogue. But it felt the wrong place, wrong time for me in terms of a storytelling perspective. And again, I reserve the right to call me out in the future and say, Donuts, you are way too hard on this campaign. These are really nitpicky stuff. Like I said, the details, the specifics, while weird, aren't necessarily bad. And that brings us to our miscellaneous category, these little tiny things that I just wanted to mention here. First things first, I don't know if this is just for the pre-release stuff going on with Modern Warfare 3, because I know the multiplayer beta did something similar to this, but when you open up Modern Warfare 3 through COD HQ, you hit Modern Warfare 3, and then it closes the game and restarts the game. So it's separate like programs, it's separate clients, I think, but there's no way to just start Modern Warfare 3. You have to start Modern Warfare 2, close Modern Warfare 2, and then the game will automatically open up Modern Warfare 3. I don't know if it's going to stay that way. I don't know if it's going to update that on launch, but like that seems really tedious to me. And playing through the campaign, this is a little tiny little thing I noticed, there was a lot more Modern Warfare 2 weapons than I suspected there was going to be. I thought this campaign was really going to highlight all of the Modern Warfare 3 weapons, but I want to say it was like 50-50 Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3 weapons, maybe even like 70-30, 70 being Modern Warfare 2 weapons and only like 30% Modern Warfare 3 weapons. But they presented the Modern Warfare 3 weapons more frequently than the Modern Warfare 2 weapons. There were more Modern Warfare 2 weapons, but there was a larger variety of Modern Warfare 2 weapons, but there was a larger quantity of Modern Warfare 3 weapons, which I found really weird. I found very odd. I thought they were really going to turn into this, oh no, it's a whole separate game, but there really wasn't anything that we didn't see in the beta. And like, if they're really trying to sell this as its own game, why is it through COD HQ? Why is it with like 70% Modern Warfare 2 weapons? It just feels so bizarre. To me personally, this would have been a fine DLC. If this was a premium DLC, I would have paid like $20, $40, $30 for this. Honestly, easy. Well, it depends on how Zombies is, honestly, but like between the remastered maps and the campaign, $40, that might be a pretty reasonable price, honestly. But this campaign, unfortunately, perhaps the biggest disappointment to me, shows that this really isn't a new experience. It's repackaged old experiences in a new way, which isn't necessarily bad. Like I said, as a DLC, this could be really fun. And if you look at it like a DLC, this is pretty serviceable. But even the missions, the open combat missions, take place on select Warzone maps, both the new Warzone map and Verdansk and the raid areas, and they reuse these assets and all of these things to reuse the weapons. But all of that makes me question, why isn't this a DLC? Like, what is it that makes them want to publish this as Modern Warfare 3? Because, you know, if you argue the point, well, a DLC would split the player base. A DLC would cause, you know, that old problem where new players won't get to play with old players. But if it's a new game, the same problem still happens because the new players don't get to play with the old players. So is it just the price tag? Because if everything carries through, and we just got word, some multiplayer maps are going to transfer to Modern Warfare 3 in like season 1 or 2 or 3 or something. So it's like, why is this not just a DLC? It's okay. It's okay if it's a DLC. It's not a bad thing. Just be honest. Just be honest. Just say it's a DLC. It's okay. It's all right. And I know we're Zombies fans on the channel here. So did this change how I feel, how excited I am for Zombies? Yeah, actually, in kind of a concerning way. After the Haunting event, I was on cloud 9. I was like, dude, Modern Warfare Zombies is going to be sick. I'm excited. It's going to do this, this, and that. But this campaign, and I know this is like, I think Infinity Ward did the campaign, Sledgehammer did the multiplayer, and then Treyarch is doing Zombies. And I know they're different, but because of how shallow and basic this campaign is, just the campaign is, which in my opinion might be the easiest thing to develop. Actually, I don't know if that's fair or not. I don't know if campaign is the easiest thing to develop, but in my eyes, it's the least important to me, so I guess I'm biased there. But if the campaign is this lacking depth, how basic is Zombies going to be? DMZ is a fantastic base. DMZ is a fantastic base core game mode, but there's a lot of updates that made DMZ much better than it was at launch. The wallet, the passive upgrades, the insured slots, the bartering system, and the different maps and all that stuff. How much of that are we going to get at launch? And I know Infinity Ward just released Modern Warfare 2. They released it literally last year, less than a year ago. Well, actually, maybe more than a year ago now. So Treyarch has probably more time to develop this, you know, Modern Warfare 3 Zombies than Infinity Ward did to develop Modern Warfare 3's campaign. So that gives me hope. And like I said, DMZ is a better base than the campaign, so that gives me hope. But still, I'm kind of backpedaling a little bit, not in terms of what I think about the mode, but what I'm trying to temper my expectations a little bit more wisely. And if you do want to see my thoughts on the Modern Warfare 3 multiplayer beta, be sure to check out this video and stay beautiful.